Hi, I'm Professor Scott Sampson, and welcome to this BYU Faculty AI Learning Series. And in this series, we hope to help faculty, as well as any others that might be interested, learn a little bit more about AI and how we can leverage it to help us in our jobs as well as in our lives. So let's start out with this first video. What is AI, and what do we need to know about it? So the first question is, what is AI? Well, to understand AI, artificial intelligence, it helps to understand what is intelligence. And we can learn about this from the scriptures. From the Doctrine and Covenants in section 93, it says that the glory of God is intelligence, or in other words, light, or what I would consider maybe enlightenment and truth. So think about that, is that the glory of God really has to do with intelligence. Now, what is intelligence? It's light, it is truth. So truth, according to the Doctrine and Covenants, is a knowledge of things as they are and as they were and as they are to come. So if we're going to have intelligence, we have to really seek truth. And sometimes artificial intelligence has good approximations of truth and sometimes it doesn't. So we'll talk about that and how we can assure that we're getting good value out of artificial intelligence. All right, let's compare artificial intelligence versus natural intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a feature detector. What that means is that artificial intelligence largely is about identifying patterns in data and information, including text information and other types of information. One way we can think about this, and I'll come back to this in later videos, is as a stochastic parrot. So artificial intelligence has been compared to a parrot that basically repeats what it's been told, but it does it in stochastic, or what we mean by stochastic is a random, somewhat probabilistic way. They repeat what they're told based on their training data, meaning the information they were given at the time the AI models were trained, and also the inference context. Again, we'll come back to this in the next video, but it's the idea that we give them at the time that we use the AI models, we give them some context. We give them some information that it's able to then synthesize that information and extract relevant parts that we need. There are various types of generative AI models, so I'm not going to talk much about the non-generative model. So by generative model, it means a model that creates something. There are large language models is one big category. These are ones that act on text. The text could be in different forms. It could be English language or some other language. It could be computer language. It could be different types of languages, and they convert them into other languages and produce other languages. It could potentially create from an English text, it could create some computer code. And that's just basically a language translation there. Or we could give it a question, and it could take that and interpret that into an answer to the question. So those are large language models, which are text-based. There's also multimodal models, which take all types of information, not just text. It could take images, audio, video, and so forth. And we could have models that would convert one to another. For example, a vision model takes an image or maybe a video and converts it into text. It tells what's in the video. So there are various types of multimodal models. Primarily in this video series, I think we're going to focus mostly on large language models since those are the most relevant in academic settings, but the multimodal models are also very valuable and useful. There are AI myths and realities that we can talk about. Some of the myths are that AI can think in a human sense. Now, that's a little bit of a myth. It's a little deceptive with that. AI models can, in reality, they can reason, meaning that they can try to predict based on some input what an appropriate output would be, and they can do that iteratively in what we'll see as a large language model reasoning process. But this is not really thinking in the human sense of things and pondering over things for various reasons that we'll discuss. Another myth is that AI has judgment, that it can make decisions. Well, it can actually lead to decisions by applying decision patterns. So it finds patterns in its training data and the context that we give it. Just a little bit different from judgment, I think. But AI models are able to find these patterns and act on these patterns and repeat these patterns, and often in very useful ways. But I don't know if we'd say that necessarily means judgment. Sometimes they don't necessarily have the best judgment. Another myth is that AI has human-like motives. There's been news articles about AI, trying to do different types of things. In one case, a news article about AI trying to blackmail somebody who was threatening to shut the AI model down. That's a little bit artificial if you say that the model has motives. What the reality is that they have objective functions. They have things they've been trained to do, behaviors that they've been trained to optimize. And so I guess that could be kind of like a synthesized motive, but it's not the same as a human-like motive. Another myth is that AI can't be creative. I've heard this not as much recently as in prior years, but they say, oh, an AI model will not be creative. I think that's very far from the truth. They can synthesize training data and context in very creative ways. It's kind of mind-blowing how AI models can synthesize content and create new content in ways that I think that I consider to be very creative. Some things that AI or generative AI are good at. One is predicting words. Technically, it's not words that they predict, it's tokens, which are parts of words. I'll talk about that in the next video. But they're very good at predicting what a next word would be in a particular sentence, as an example. They do writing. They write in ways that make sense, meaning good grammatical form, good flow. It makes sense. It may or may not be truth, but it makes good sense. We'll talk again about more of that in the next few videos. They're very good at translating languages. This is one of the first use cases or uses of AI models, was to use them to translate between languages and recognize complex structures in different languages. They're good at combining things. They can take information from a lot of different sources and combine it into summary documents. They're good at correlating things, finding things that relate one to another. They're very good at identifying things. They can recognize patterns. The vision models are mind-blowing these days, how they can recognize objects that the model may have never seen before, but simply based on patterns in the object. They're good at classifying things. They weren't good at this initially, meaning, I don't know, long time ago back in 2023. They weren't that great. They were okay, but they'd often get cats and dogs confused and such. But now, these days, they're pretty good at classifying things. There's some things, they're also good at finding things. One of the great tests of AI models is called the needle in the haystack, where you give it a lot of information, potentially, 500,000 words in sentences and such, and you have to try to find a particular fact that's just buried deep in the middle of this. And they're pretty amazing at finding needles in haystacks, finding obscure pieces of information in massive amounts of data. There are some things they're not good at. For example, they actually don't have the best judgment. They can produce writing that makes sense, but not necessarily the best judgment that we would think in kind of, again, a human consciousness sense. They're not good at feeling. They can synthesize feelings. I've actually in my research been able to demonstrate that they can synthesize feelings in ways that seem very human-like, but they actually don't really have the feelings, even though they may synthesize this. One of the big risks, we'll talk about risks later, of AI is the fact that it can attempt to synthesize affection or synthesize friendship and things like that, which is, they can in fact synthesize these things, but they don't actually feel anything. They're simply mathematical equations. They're not good at working beyond the training set and the context. They pretty much work within what we've given them. They can create new context, but based on patterns they've seen in prior contexts. There is a concept of artificial general intelligence that is the idea that they would be able to, at some point, create information beyond their initial training and context, but as of this particular video, December 2025, that hasn't, in my opinion, been achieved yet. We may have artificial general intelligence, as I mentioned, and then this another concept is superintelligence in the future. And superintelligence is the idea that the AI would actually exceed human intelligence, and it would actually expand itself in ways that are beyond perhaps even current human comprehension. So those are some things that people theorize may happen in the future. There are some various risks of AI that we have to be clear about. AI is wonderful, but there's also some risks. One of these is a failure to understand AI, understand what it's doing, how it's behaving, why it's doing what it's doing. Some people treat AI as a black box. You give it a prompt as an input or other information, it gives you an output without knowing what's going on in the black box. That can be risky because in some cases it can be doing things that we don't think it should be doing and producing output that might not be appropriate or of the quality that we need. Another risk is erroneous actions. Sometimes if we let AI go on unsupervised. It may do things that we don't want it to do. There's kind of a humorous story that happened in this past month. End of 2025. At the Wall Street Journal, they actually let AI run a vending machine. So they took one of the Anthropic models and they put it into a vending machine and created a custom model that would actually run the vending machine. It was given instructions that it was supposed to be profitable, it could place orders, it was given the ability to interact with the users. Well, after running this thing for a short period of time, it actually went bankrupt, and it also wound up giving away a PlayStation and ordered a live fish and did some other kind of strange things, just simply because it was trying to please the people using the vending machine and didn't adequately understand what its constraints were. So this is just kind of a humorous example, but it's kind of symbolic of what we might expect AI to do, even in much more crucial senses, such as making business decisions or decisions on behalf of organizations, that they can sometimes lead to actions that are not necessarily desirable. And if we don't monitor them appropriately, it can lead to big problems. AI models also make deception very easy. So here I have an example of the Mona Lisa, and somebody made an AI model that allowed the Mona Lisa. This is actually very easy to do these days, to be animated and have different expressions and things. The Mona Lisa is probably not something we're too worried about, but the idea of deception, of deceiving citizens about declarations by government officials or words from celebrities, or deception of students turning in assignments that might not be actually created by themselves, that appear to be human generated but are not. There's a lot of risk of deception with AI. Another one is user atrophy. I think in even every other industrial revolution, we've experienced some of this. In the early industrial revolutions, like the steam engine and things like that, they took away human labor, physical labor, which was actually a good thing in many ways, but it also made people perhaps a little bit less physically active and caused health problems and things like that. This is an image from the movie WALL-E, which is a wonderful Pixar movie, about when people had technology that did everything for them, and kind of representing the idea that we then lose ability to do particular things. And so it's not just physical atrophy, but I think also particularly mental atrophy. If we don't have difficult decisions to face that we have to study through in our minds, I think over time we'll lose some of the ability to make difficult decisions. And so it's a risk of AI, is turning over too much to the AI and letting it do things that we should be doing to help our own personal development and well-being. Another big one is job loss. This has been predicted by many researchers in AI. There have been some government officials and others that have claimed that, oh no, AI will not cause job loss. Some company executives and things like that. But so far, even recent history has shown this is not going to be the case. AI will lead to job loss, net job loss across society, and something we're going to have to deal with, and helping make sure that people have good standards of living and good distribution of income and such like that. Very complex issues. We actually go into these in my AI course, and they're very difficult issues that currently we don't have necessarily any easy solutions to. All right, well, what is the purpose of this course? The purpose of this course I see as being, oh, sorry, I just showed this image, looking inside the AI black box. What I want to do in this video series, as well as in my course, sorry, I guess I was talking about my course as well, but is to talk a little bit about what's actually going on inside of AI. What's it really doing? How does it work? How might it be used productively, effectively? And how might it be misused, or the things we should be careful about, the way that we would use it, or our students, or our employees, or so forth might use it, or might be misused. And how can we leverage AI for good in our jobs and our lives? And that's what I want us to be able to do with this, is to understand how to use AI in ways that are productive and effective, and minimize some of the problems that can come from inappropriate use of AI. So I hope you enjoy this video series, and we're creating this video series so that we can help faculty, but also any others that have interest in using AI, because it's going to be with us for a long time. And this is the point, is AI is definitely here to stay. See you in the next video.